Hi guys, and welcome to the second part of my Skyrim ENB series. In part 1 I covered the very popular Sharpshooters ENB, and that is a very cinematic ENB. It has quite a large impact on your performance, but it does make the game look pretty spectacular. But for this video I'm going to cover Project ENB, which is another very popular ENB mod, but one of the big differences with this one is it is designed to be used with another lighting mod, in this particular case Climates of Tamriel. Now whilst I will be comparing this mod to say the vanilla game, I will probably be comparing it to Sharpshooters ENB for fairly obvious reasons. I will not be covering things like SSAO and depth of field to the same degree I covered in part 1. If you don't understand those concepts, please watch the first part of this series. It will explain that in detail. However, I will be going into the concept of realism. And the reason being is there is quite a lot of controversy about what that word means, how it should be used, and so on. And that is of special interest to this part because the version of Project ENB I'm going to use is the realistic version. Realism is a word that is used a lot in the modding community and probably overused. And of course it's very subjective and depends on what you classify as realistic. For example, if you need a scene to actually have the colours match the colours that you would see with a naked human eye, then Sharpshooters is probably not very realistic because it oversaturates them. However, if you're the sort of person who can watch a black and white movie and still consider it realistic, as long as it looks like the scene was shot with the camera in the real world rather than a computer generated model, you may find mods that oversaturate or undersaturate to be completely realistic. From my point of view, if it makes you feel like you're in the game for real rather than playing a computer game, it's realistic or immersive. Take your pick as to the word. If that's not the correct usage, honestly, I don't really care. So if I don't care, why am I talking about it? Well, I'm talking about it because the version of Project ENB that I'm going to use is the realistic one. And I know it's going to spark some arguments down below. Project ENB comes in a few different types, for example cinematic or fantasy, and one of them is realistic. From what I can see, it is just the most realistic of the 4 presets. Please don't go mad that it's not completely realistic and so on. Okay, so now I've got the realistic argument settled, hopefully. What can I say about the differences between Sharpshooters ENB and Project ENB? Both mods really do bring out the colours quite a lot, but Sharpshooters really does favour the greens, whereas Project ENB definitely has a thing for blue. But that is not the first thing I noticed. The first thing I noticed was how they handle light and dark. Sharpshooters really does enhance the shadows. It really has some nice deep dark areas for the shadows. Whereas on the other hand, Project ENB makes everything a lot lighter. Visibility is massively enhanced. It is as though the mod author said, let there be light. For the outdoor scenes especially, the image is crystal clear. You can see everything, every detail. Everything is very, very well lit. You find it very easy to see in all the corners. Even in the shaded areas, you still have good visibility. Oh, and if you are wondering whether or not the brightness is due to me having my brightness set too high, the answer is no. The mod in the installation process insists that you drop the brightness setting down completely, which I have done, as you can see. So this is the darkest you can set the game now. Now, of course, a lot of this is going to come down to personal preference, and I'm sort of mixed on this. For example, I really do like shaded areas. So with Sharpshooters, areas that didn't have a direct light definitely seemed to be noticeably shadier, and that gave it a very realistic look. Whereas with Project ENB, these areas were a lot better lit, as if there were some light off to the side, and it did make the image easier to see. But even though everything does feel better lit, it's not bleached, it's not overexposed, so it still feels quite warm, quite cozy. And some of the sunsets and sunrises are absolutely spectacular. And both mods make those sort of scenes look great, but Project ENB sometimes it is pretty amazing. There is a definite cinematic feel even to the realistic setting. Now, like with all of these type of mods, it's going to depend on where you are, what the weather is, and obviously personal taste. Some mods actually look great in one place, but not as good as others, and it is unlikely that you're going to find one visual mod that makes every place perfect and exactly the way you want it. There's probably going to be one thing from one mod and another from another, and you're just going to have to choose. Both mods also handle interiors a little differently. So for example, in this dungeon here, the Sharpshooters mod, it emphasizes the shadows and it looks really nice, but now compare it to Project ENB. The Project ENB mod is actually darker. The lights are a little less harsh, a little less intense, and the whole image feels a little softer. The non-dungeon interiors seem to vary, so some of them are darker with Project ENB than they would be with Sharpshooters. However, if you look at this in with Sharpshooters and then look at it with Project ENB, you can see it's nowhere near as dark. It is still a lot darker than the vanilla. As you can see, the vanilla is completely floodlit. And with the ENB, it is nice, it is cozy, but visibility is absolutely great. But again, this is the vanilla setting. If I go to Climates of Tamriel, the warm interior setting, which is fairly dark, as you can see here, and then apply the ENB, it gets really quite dark. Actually, as you can see, darker than the Sharpshooters. But again, the light just looks different as well. It's not a simple matter of lighter and darker. One other interesting thing I found about darkness was how it handled sort of evenings, night, especially when it was raining. This is Climates of Tamriel, late afternoon when it's raining slightly. Now look at the same image with the ENB applied. It actually looks a little lighter. But now look at the image a little later. This is early evening, Climates of Tamriel. It's a very nice image, but watch what happens, especially to the lit areas, when we apply Project ENB. For some reason, I really do like the way that looks. And now, late at night. As I switch to the Project ENB, look at the windows and how much brighter they seem to glow, and yet the external lights dim and make everything look a little colder and a little wetter. I really do like the way this looks. However, when you compare the Project ENB in a snowstorm in the early evening, with the Sharpshooters one, I much preferred the Sharpshooters one. It really did darken the sky and make everything seem very, very dim indeed. Now, of course, Project ENB has ambient occlusion, although, as I've said, because it doesn't emphasize the shadows as much as Sharpshooters, you may not notice it quite as much, but it does have the same bokeh depth of field. It seems a little less strong, and the range of focus seems a little larger, which makes it a bit easier on the eyes. It is still very smooth focus and, for me, a little slow when playing. But of course, it does make brilliant screenshots. Now, of course, one last question is going to be, what is the performance like? So I will put the FPS counter on that comes with ENB mods. As you can see here, less than 40 frames a second, which is pretty low. And as I move around, it will vary. However, it never really drops below about 30. So if you're the sort of person who doesn't mind 30 frames a second, between 30 and 40 anyway, then this mod's fine. As long as you've got the system to run it. Again, I have a fairly powerful system, a GTX 670, 4GB, and a fairly heavily overclocked system. As you can see, it does look beautiful. but the FPS almost never raises over 40. It does go up to about 45 and 50 in some places outside, but isn't that typical? Time to run away. As you can see, my performance, it's gone up. Maybe being chased by a dragon helps. Right, oh god, deadly dragons, this is not going to be good. So, as I was saying, performance is actually, the performance hit is actually greater than Sharpshooters. Sharpshooters did affect your performance a little bit. This affects it more, believe it or not. However, again, it is playable, especially when you go inside, where I do get 60 frames a second rock solid. It never drops. Oh, there you go. I was about to say, it's making a right liar of me. And as you can see, beautiful. Very nice indeed. I'll take some health to get rid of my annoying health bar and ruining my image. So, beautiful. Oh yeah, you know, I did say one other thing. There is something else. ENB mods do seem to disable the night vision mods, like Predator Vision. However, this one does not. Predator Vision, and I would assume all other night vision mods, are work perfectly well with this ENB mod, which is good for me. This is something I definitely like. There is one problem you should probably be aware of, and it is not a problem with Project ENB, it is a problem with any ENB, and I have been told it's a problem with ambient occlusion. And the problem is, when in first person mode, as you get close to objects, can you see the sword getting transparent? And same with the torch, actually. The torch is slightly transparent as well, but it's more noticeable on the sword. So go away. And it is a bug in the engine, apparently, not in ENB, but in the Skyrim engine, that is uncovered by ENB rendering. I am not totally sure if that is true. I don't know if this occurs if you use NVIDIA ambient occlusion, but it does occur. There you go. Now, I'm told it's all ENBs, so it would have been there with Sharpshooters, and I just didn't notice it because I didn't get that close to objects with my weapon drawn out. Usually when I've got my weapon drawn out, I'm busy hitting things and not looking at the transparent sword, so I rarely run around with my sword out. I might with the torch though, and as you can see, there is a you see this point here, as the torch gets close, it starts to get shaded. And same with my hand. You see my hand and arm? If you play third person, you won't get this problem, and there are some suggested techniques to get around this. However, I have not had much success. I tried to roll back the drivers to an earlier version, which did fix a problem with sun rays, but did not fix this problem. There is an INI tweak that I have seen that apparently makes the problem less pronounced. It doesn't eradicate it, but it does make it less pronounced. However, it does reduce your performance. So, I will keep my eyes open for ways to fix this, because it is something that hits every ENB mod. Anyway, that is it for this video. I hope it gave you some idea as to the differences between Project ENB and Sharpshooters ENB, and I hope it gave you some inspiration to go out and try this great mod. I am going to do an installation video, and once it's finished I will post a link to it from this video as well. And of course, I am going to end with a lot of the screenshots that you guys have been posting on my Skyrim Mods Sanctuary page. Brilliant as always. Thanks for posting. Please keep doing it. I will be releasing part 3 as soon as I am able, and of course I will probably have posted several videos before that. You are more than welcome to join me for any of those, and I look forward to seeing you there. And until then, as always, have fun.